was going down. Oh, like a shipwreck, I cut the sails loose.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in a Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to have a special guest, Natasha Bazilevych, and she's going to be a public speaker who is going to be able to give some examples today of how to be an effective public speaker, but also to talk about how speaking brings about power, passion, and energy. Many of our speeches have become almost watered down. Just looking at the president, for example, when he speaks, it's almost like a robot. The verbiage is just so ordinary. There's not much meaning. There's not much power. We can't get behind what he says because we don't get that emotion from him. Now, if he got away from the script and he became more aware of what he was speaking about, then we can create that power. And that's going to be the conversation of awareness, right? How can we be aware? How can we find energy in what we do? But we have to be energetic and passionate about what we do, what we say, and then how we present that to the world. So public speaking is not just so much of being able to go out and speak in the public. It's more so of, can we find the power within us, the power within our voice? Because our words are powerful. They can create an impact that you wouldn't believe. I can say something to you that can lift you up, or I can say something to you that can tear you down. Now, depending on the actions you do are going to determine or depict what I say to you. Now, I'm not in the business of tearing people down, but if I do tear them down, it's to help build them back up. Because sometimes we have to shed who we were to create space for who we will be. When we want to be better public speakers or better speakers in general, we have to get rid of some of the habits sometimes that have taken a hold of us. Those bad habits that don't do anything more than to distract and disorientate. So let's dive into that interview with Natasha and myself on how to find the power in our speech.
I know the next morning when the sun goes up, it might be the last day of you.
Welcome Natasha Bazilevych to Coaching in a Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi, Michael.
So I have you on. You are a public speaking coach. I know it might seem pretty straightforward what you do, but in your own words, can you tell the world what you do?
Yes, I help entrepreneurs and executives to give powerful presentations. If we do it really short, I help people gain confidence, overcome a fear of public speaking, then craft a clear message and then deliver it with persuasion and power.
Do you find that many people struggle with this, or is something that they can get on or they can learn very quickly?
Well, both. Actually, a lot of people struggle with this, and that's why I started niching down to public speaking, because before I was teaching a lot of other business skills. And then I saw that so many people come to me for this. A lot of people prefer and ask for presentation skills. So that's when I started teaching only this skill, because that's my passion. This is probably my favorite one to teach. And yeah, it is absolutely learnable. It's a skill just like any other, just like reading, walking, you can learn it and anybody can. Of course, some people are more talented maybe in this and they have more aptitude, but still anybody can learn to speak in public.
And what got you into wanting to prefer public speaking coaching versus like life coaching, for example?
Well, like I said, I was teaching different business skills. So I started with more business skill coaching, just different personal growth trainings. And I was teaching it for 14 years. And then I saw that people ask for presentation skills more. And I decided that I'm going to niche down. Actually, during the pandemic, that's when it happened. I started giving only because I wanted to give something away. Everyone, remember when the pandemic started, everyone was doing something, helping and just giving something away. And I decided, okay, what can I do? This is my skill. I'm going to create these public speaking courses online for free and just do these videos online. And I just started doing it every week. And I saw how people loved it. They wanted it. Then I created a course out of it, created a free course first, and then the paid program. And then I saw how it was needed and how people were coming. to me for that, and decided to focus on this because, like I said before, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of people don't. So sometimes it's almost my mission to help people fall in love with public speaking because there is so much power in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want other people to understand that they have that power within them to speak, to share their voice. And they can help so many people with their voices and their messages.
For me, there's like an idea of passion behind the work you do, right? I can tell you're very
Mhm.
passionate about public speaking. When I started my teaching career, I was in music. I was very passionate about music, and it evolved. It wasn't so much
Mhm.
I was so passionate about music, even though it was a passion of mine. Clearly, I spoke about it like it was a passion. I taught it in the schools like it was a passion. But eventually, I went on to do a different type of education where
Mhm.
I'm not so much teaching music anymore, but I'm teaching people how to be more mindful. Because
Mhm.
I realized down the road that it wasn't so much music was my passion, it was education was my passion.
Mhm.
So it always kind of interests me when someone finds like a passion, whether it be public speaking, whether it be cooking, sewing. Like there's so many passions that a person
Mhm.
can kind of fall in love with. And one of the things that I help people with is find their passion. And so when I find someone like you who is very passionate about what they do, I ask, why public speaking? Like you say, is passion. But for some people, they don't understand what passion is because they don't have that inside of them. So it's kind
Mhm.
of like a journey to find passion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was a journey or a story behind, besides just the pandemic, besides it being needed. Maybe you had a father who read to you, or was a speaker, or a mother, same thing. So was there like a story, a backstory to it? Or did you just saw someone on stage one day and fall in love with the idea of public speaking?
Well, there were two moments that maybe defined this passion for me. And the first one goes back, way back to my high school. When I was a teenager, I was really shy. My friends kept telling me, when will you stop being so shy? I didn't do things because I was afraid. And so I started writing in my journal. I started developing my confidence. I wrote tips, like steps of how to become more confident because I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be an interpreter and travel the world. And I started working on it. And actually, then my first success as a confident person was a speech. I was giving a valedictorian speech in front of all the parents and teachers and students. And that's when I felt this power of a speaker. Because as
Mm,
speakers, we all have this power. The question is, do we use it or not? Because when you are standing on the stage and you're looking into people's eyes, and when I could see that their eyes were lighting up when I said something, I inspired people. And there's a huge power in inspiring another human being. And when I felt that, that's when I knew I'm going to do this. I didn't know at that time what it will look like, but I just became a teacher. I started first teaching children. Then after a year, I understood, no, I'm here on this earth to teach adults, not children. So even being 22, I started teaching adults, giving seminars, workshops, and then trainings. And then I came to Toastmasters Club. So that was the second moment that defined it for me. And at the Toastmasters Club, I just saw that I'm actually really good at that. And that is another thing about passion is you find what you love doing, and then find if you are good at that, find what you love, find what you're good at, and find what people need, what the world needs. And then when we combine these three,
mm,
that's when we can create a business or create a passion that will be so helpful for others and great for us. And
mm.
so after that Toastmasters meeting, several meetings, I understood that I wanted to do more public speaking because I enjoy it so much and can do it pretty well.
Teaching is one of those things where you have to find your area per se. Some people like teaching kindergarten, some people like teaching high school or college. It just depends on their temperament, their patience level. I can teach any grade. It doesn't matter what grade. It's just that I just have to switch my brain to saying, okay, they're not kids, because kids learn differently than adults. It takes more energy to work with a child than it does with an adult. That's just
Mm-hmm.
it, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
go to elementary school, teach elementary school, K to it was K to 5 or K to 6, depending on your school district. and I would come home exhausted. When
Yeah.
I went to middle school, pretty straightforward. I would come home, I still had some energy. High school, even easier. I would come home, I had all this energy. It's just as you go up, the kids do most of the work
Mhm.
versus when you're younger, you have to bring so much to the table. And you said something interesting that I really am interested about the power of public speaking, right? Like when you're speaking in front of an audience, it's like you have this power. And even when I was a teacher and I was in front of the class, I knew I had this power, but with great power comes great responsibility. And so I could have been a teacher who maybe used this power for bad,
Mhm.
where I could have been degrading to the kids. I could have been negative. There's so many options, right? I could have been good. I could have been bad. I chose to be good, right? I wanted to help build them up. I wanted them to be better. My speech to them or my power to them was them to say, wow, like this is a good teacher. He has a good heart. And
Mhm.
I'm sure it's the same thing for you. But today, when many people are going up on the public stage, whether it be on mainstream media, it could be politicians. When they come up on stage, it seems like their words don't have a power behind them anymore. It seems like everything is scripted and that power is lost. Do you think it's because they just don't have passion in what they do, or that they're not able to bring out the power because everything is so scripted?
Mhm. Yes, when we think about today, there are so many people who speak with power. It's just that it's so diluted because right now with our social media, with media, with we hear more speeches than we heard before. That's
Mhm.
why right now there are a lot of powerful speakers. And well, I want to say that all of us, we have power within to speak. We sometimes use it, sometimes we don't. But there are a lot of speakers. When you go on TED and you watch TED Talks, you can see even those 25 most popular ones, they are powerful and they have changed the world basically.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of power in speaking, in speakers. It's just because there are so many speakers now. It's like everyone is a speaker.
Mhm.
And that's why when we see this percentage, then we can say, oh, there's less. There are less people who speak with this power than
Mhm.
before. But when I hear different personalities, different speakers, either that's a professional speaker or it's just a coach who, not just, or it's a coach who shares a message with people, or it's a teacher who speaks about something important and teaches the audience. We always, like you said, we always have to keep in mind, are we passionate about this? And do we know, are we experts, or at least do we know this topic enough to deliver it, to share it? And then how do we care about the audience that right now we are delivering it to? And then when you have that in mind, then you will have power in your message because you will then exude this passion and this enthusiasm. And then, yes, definitely not memorizing, not
Mhm.
reading from script, but speaking about it. It's a conversation. So as soon as you hear that this speech is a conversation of a person, of a speaker and the audience, then you can feel that power that people share it with.
Mhm. Do TEDx talks have a prompt, or do they have like something that a person can read off of, but not so much verbatim, but it's kind of like a PowerPoint that is in front of them, but the audience can't see, right? So,
Yeah, they can be TEDx. You can use PowerPoint or you don't have to. It's
mhm.
it's up to you. TEDx or TED Talks, they are, it's not like you have to do it in a certain way. You prepare your speech the way you want, but they have coaches and they need you to rehearse it many times
Mhm.
so that you know it really well. And that's very important for speakers and very important for exuding power
Mhm.
or speaking with power. Not memorizing it, but rehearsing, practicing many times. And each time it could be different. And that's
Mhm.
fine. You don't have to do it in the same way, but you just need to know it so well, internalize it, own it, so that it becomes a part of you. And then
Mhm.
when you share that speech, then you don't care if you forgot somewhere something, but because it's so much a part of you already, then you just live it there on the stage or wherever you are standing in front of the group.
Mhm.
You live that speech, and that's when it will be powerful and it will be passionate.
When I started college, I took an acting class. And during the acting class, we had to recite like a poem that we got to pick. So it wasn't a poem that the teacher gave us. We got to pick the poem. And so I picked a poem about music because at the time I was really passionate about music. I read the poem or I recited the poem because you had to understand it and you didn't read off a paper or anything. You just remembered it and then you had to act it out. And when you acted it out, you had to bring the emotion with your voice. The first time I did it, you can tell everyone was kind of like, meh, like I don't really feel it. And then teacher says, do this, he gave me some tips. And then I did it that way. And everyone was like, wow, like it was a big difference. And then the third time I did it, it was still like the same. It was like the same level, right? Where it was like that tip or saying, hey, do this instead. And then having that conversation of passion, like do you like really deep down, like, do you find this to be good? And I find when it comes to public speaking, many people, I think they're afraid to be open, where they don't want to be put out on a pedestal, or they don't want to be in a position where they could be ridiculed or made fun of. And then they decide to, say, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to remain how I am. I'm not going to speak. And then they tack on a fear behind it. So that's where the fear of public speaking comes in. They can speak. I'm sure they have in their past. They might not enjoy it because they just don't do it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that if you do it a billion times, you're going to love it. Some people just don't like speaking in front of people. But at the same time, it's like, I think before we put ourselves on the stage, we give ourselves so many fears and so many things to worry about before we even get up there. What are some tips and tricks that you can give people or tell people that before they even get up on stage, how can we start to mitigate and drown out some of those voices of fear in our head?
Well, what I do, and actually I get nervous, everyone gets nervous. I love speaking and I've done that for more than a decade, but it's still every time it's something new, the new audience, a new speech, I get a little bit nervous and it's normal. And that's why we shouldn't be paralyzed by that little fear or that little nervousness. We should embrace it. We should say, oh, okay, great. That just shows that I'm a normal human being, because everybody has that. And it shows that I care, that it's not some kind of, whatever speech, but I really do care. That's why I have this little bit of nervousness. First, what I do is breathe in. So I do some breathing techniques. I just breathe in, hold my breath, and then I breathe out. I don't really count, but you can count, of course, 4, 4. Sometimes people use those numbers. But what I do is I just breathe in, hold, and that when I hold, that helps me calm down. Then very slowly, I breathe out as slow as possible. And if I'm by myself, then I do it audibly so I can hear myself breathing out. And I do that sometimes when I'm with people preparing for my speech, for like a contest, speech contest, for example. So I'm sitting there and no one can see me, but I will just even close my eyes and I will do this breathe in, breathe out a few times. And then you can slow your heart rate down. I've done that right before going to my doctor's office. I had to get this certificate for my running my marathon. So I was rushing. I was in a hurry. I came to the doctor and I was so in a hurry that I was sitting near the office and I was thinking, oh, she will look at my heart right now, because my heart rate was so fast. I was basically running there and I needed to calm down. So I did these breathing exercises. I calmed myself down so much. She was surprised. I could barely see any line, any jump on the diagram when she was checking my heart. So you can definitely do that. And you know that it works. And then when you calm down a little bit, then whatever nervousness comes after that, use it as an energy. Just channel it into energy, into enthusiasm, into passion, and just play with it. Get on that wave of this nervous energy and then share your message. Other things that could be very practical is memorize your opening. I always say, don't memorize your speech, have an outline and you can even look at it. But the opening is something that we can memorize because it's 1-2 sentences. And because you've repeated it so many times, you memorized, then this is the first thing you say and you know it well. So you don't have to be nervous. And then as soon as you say it, this time when we get into a groove of this speech, and then you said these two sentences and then just keep going. It's like the momentum.
Mhm.
So that's also very helpful. Memorize the opening and memorize the ending, I always say, because you've got to know how to finish it strong
Mhm.
so that people remember your speech. But the opening helps with nervousness.
Yeah, I learned that in my public speaking class in high school. High school, you would think you're just in a room of 25 of your friends and you should be able to go up and speak and not have a problem. But it was always an issue. It was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about? And then you're trying not to embarrass yourself because this is high school. So you want to be accepted. It's just so much. Eventually that goes away where it's like, I don't care who I'm speaking with. I have something to say. So, like for me, when I first started the podcast and then being on camera, it was like I'm a little bit camera shy. And I'm like, why am I camera shy? I'm in my house. And I just was like, I don't know if people are going to like me. Or it was all these self-doubting type of conversations I was having where I knew I had a message. I just had to be willing to get it out there and not be worried about, I guess, what could happen. It's a process where we go up on stage or we start a conversation and then we eventually evolve it. So those openings that you might practice in the beginning are going to be maybe robotic in the beginning because you're just trying to say it with, and it's not going to have as much passion, but eventually you're going to remember it and you're going to fall in love with it. And it's going to be like, oh, wow, like this guy knows what he's talking about just from remembering your opening and then your closing, of course. And then the middle, you can fill in what you have to fill in, right? So what I find is that maybe if someone messes up or if they are somewhere in the middle, they feel obligated to put in some filler space. I'm victim of it too. All right. I'm not the best public speaker in the world. There's always room for improvement, especially when it comes to me. They will fill their speeches with like, yeah, and then so when we're going to the so it's a lot of ums in there, or they could be a lot of ands or there's a lot of filler words sometimes. And I do my best to not give too many filler words because I'm trying to give a message, not filler words. Are there any tips or tricks on filler words? I know this is something that might be difficult to answer because it's just going to be practice, I think, but there has to be something that kind of a person can think about.
Yeah, yes. And definitely filler words are normal.
Mhm.
Some great speakers, you can hear them. They use a little bit, even, or kind of, a few of them, not many, because of course, when you repeat them many times, then it becomes really annoying and people can hear it. But putting one or two here and there is fine. It makes the speech normal.
Mhm.
Not like these people, these speakers who give, especially international Toastmasters speech contests. It's like they're so robotic to me sometimes because there's no filler word. They're so well rehearsed. Even the movements are rehearsed. What I say, yes, rehearse your speech, but so that no one will then notice and see that you rehearsed it, because it's just too noticeable that it's even every movement, every look, every word is rehearsed and memorized. No, it has to be a conversation. That's why in a conversation, it's normal to say one or two filler words here and there. How do we get rid of them? To get rid of something, a habit, a filler word, we need to be aware of it. We understand. As a life coach, you know. So first of all, you've got to know your filler words, the ones that you want to get rid of. How do you do that? You watch yourself on video, record yourself, or even maybe someone already recorded. So go and watch that video and listen to yourself. Ask friends or people who listen to you, what filler words did you notice? So first be aware and then start noticing. When you watched yourself on a video and listened, or someone told you, then when you speak, start noticing that, oh, I just said that. And it's okay. Okay, you already said it, but your task, the second step, is to start noticing when you're actually in the process of you doing it. Because as soon as you start noticing, then it loses its power. Maybe you've read Taming Your Gremlin by Rick Carson. I'm right now in the process. It's actually a pretty old book. It's 1983 is when he wrote it. And he talks about gremlins, not just filler words, but all kinds of gremlins. Like you said, those negative, those little ugly creatures inside of us that give us negative talk. Oh, you can't do it. No, you won't be able to do it. Oh, you are such a, or when we judge other people. So his strategy is always first, simply notice. And it's so powerful when you just notice and you don't fight with it. You don't do anything. Don't analyze. Don't argue with your gremlin, or don't overanalyze your filler words, but just notice. And because as soon as you are aware, and then you even started noticing you doing it, then the next step, you will stop yourself before saying it. So a great strategy is pauses. When we are not sure what we want to say next, it's normal in our speech. Sometimes we have to think and decide what will be the next thing I'm saying on the word, the phrase. Pause. Because why do people have those filler words? Because they're trying to fill the pause. So it's like all these sounds, they are serving the speaker, whoever is using them, to not have silence. So for some reason, people think that having silence, having this pause is awkward or wrong. No, it's powerful. Use pauses. And whenever you need to stop and think, then stop and think, pause. And that's normal. And then you will say, of course, there are other phrases I use so a lot. So that is that I'm working on. Or, so these are not sounds like, these are words. And that's what we need to be aware of and just use them less.
And to have space creates power, because when we have that space, it's going to create almost like an anticipation. Exactly. Where it's like, what is he going to say next? And it's kind of like a good book where it's like you finish a chapter and you just have to read the next chapter, even though it's bedtime. Similar to a speech where we get on stage or we might be doing something and then they say something and then they do a pause. What are they going to say next? What type of wisdom am I going to get from them? What's going to be profound from them? That type of pauses have kind of gone in the wayside because we are living in a very busy world where there's so much noise, there's so much traffic, there's so much distractions, whether it be people, technology, smartphones, things like that. We don't have to be alone. We don't have to be in a quiet place. We are always entwined by internet, social media, news, whatever. And that gives us that noise, right? It gives us something to focus on. That kind of goes into the sense of like being mindful, meditation. That's why meditation is so difficult for many people in the beginning, because they're learning how to quiet their mind. They're learning how to say, let me be still before being loud. So that space is kind of weird for people because they can't be loud and they want to be loud. They're so used to being loud. They're so used to hearing these noises. And now that there's this space, it's creating a power. And again, it's creating that anticipation and kind of like a tension that is needed to make a conversation a conversation. Because I don't know if you have noticed, but people have become less cordial in the recent years, where it's people not being able to have conversations with people with different mindsets or different ideas or opinions. They are so quick to spew what they have to say, but not open to listening to what the other person has to say. And that's like that silence, being silent and listening to that space that maybe you're not familiar with. And to be understanding because of that. But it's difficult now for people to hear a different opinion or a different belief that's different than their own. Is that a public speaking thing, a communication thing, a society thing? I mean, it could be many different things, or it could be collaboration of all of them. What do you think is happening with society and just having cordial conversation?
Yeah, I think it really depends on who we surround ourselves with and how do we personally react to other people's opinions, because everything starts with us. And that's why I can't say that people around me are too rigid in their opinions. We're all opinionated. Like, I know that I'm an opinionated person, and all of my friends are very opinionated, but I start with myself. I know that I learn every day, every year. I teach myself to be open to my friends' opinions, because I disagree with some of their opinions, but I love them. That's why I want to be open. And in this society, I don't know what the reason is, So it's hard to know why this is happening. I think always, even before now, there were people who were opinionated. It's just that because now with social media and with everything being so loud and being so open and so out there, we all know, then we just hear all these opinions, and we hear about all these fights and everything that's happening. It's just all out in the open, so we know it. But these kind of disagreements, they existed always. I can't say for sure what really causes them right now at this. Maybe, like you said, there's just so much of everything now. The world is developing, and there are so many new things appearing. And of course, when there is so much of new stuff coming into our world, then there will be people who will be opposing that. And then that's why there will be more of these disagreements or different opinions, and when people don't want to accept another opinion. But still, at the same time, maybe like you and I, we're in this personal development space. I see and hear and surround myself with people who want to grow, always want to learn. And we talk so much about our heart and soul and working on no judgment and acceptance. And we just talk about this. So in my space, and in like my coaches, my friends, my clients, my people who are in my space, we talk a lot about this. And that's why it just feels like we are working on it. So it feels good. It feels like it's actually a good process that is happening. But it's a natural process of development of the world, is that there will be different opinions. There's one thing, maybe if I can just go back for 1 second, when we talked about pauses, I really wanted to say this. Sometimes when I watch people make pauses deliberately for dramatic effect, to me, that's just a little unnatural, inauthentic, and I don't like it personally. Some people will say, well, you've got to practice this, because of course, as speakers, we're all performers too. So make these dramatic pauses. But when I hear that it's a normal pause, that it's something that people paused to think or to attract, it's natural. It's a pause that is a part of your speech naturally, not that you're putting it there for this dramatic effect to really attract people's attention. And it's too long sometimes. Some of the speakers, they're making this, they're trying to do it's like too much, it's like too hard. They're trying too hard. For me, that's not natural. And again, we're going back to, it's a conversation. Every speech is a conversation. And then the more natural it is, the more authentic it is, the more powerful it will be for the audience.
And it's like a dance where it's like your moves could be on time, they can be behind, or they could be a little bit too quick. So if you have like a dance teacher per se, and you're basically a dance teacher, but in the realm of teaching people how to speak eloquently. So instead of dance eloquently, they speak eloquently. Are you going too fast? Hey, bring it back a little bit. You're going a little bit too slow. Let's speed it up. There's a little bit too much room. Let's tighten that up. Right. So you're able to give that type of coaching where you're seeing the space, where you see them going too far ahead or being too far behind. And you just help them be in time. In music, everything is metered, whether you're in 3/4, 4/4, whatever it be, right? You have to follow that. Otherwise, the music is going to be offbeat. And I remember one time I was in college still, and we were getting ready to do a concert. We had basically, there's like a concert that the students had to put on for the school, parents, everything. So we were like having like a jam session, and we were taking turns soloing, and I played guitar. So when I first started to play guitar, I really enjoyed solos that were filled with space. And if you think of like B.B. King, like how he plays, and there's a lot of room in between his notes, there's a reason for that. It wasn't because he didn't know what to say or what to play. And the guitar speaks similar to how we speak. And having that space creates emotion, where if you have a vibrato during guitar with just one note, you can hear so much emotion in that one note, that one string. That creates music. Because if you ever hear music that's like, it's very quick, right? And you can appreciate that too. But when you have space, it's a different, basically, mind that is going on. And it's like, okay, I'm listening to every note. And that's why I think certain people prefer classical nowadays versus like the new age music, because it's so fast. And then classical, you can really dive deep. Some classical is pretty quick. Going on a tangent, but basically being able to find that space, because there's going to be appropriate times for that space. And then there's going to be times when we need to kind of speed it up. So understanding that. And then if you're having a hard time in that area, then of course, getting a public speaking coach like yourself, Natasha, is going to be important. So you're there to help them say, hey, let's do this instead. Let's tighten this up. And I think that's going to be impactful. And then kind of doing a full circle on our whole conversation in the beginning. You said that there's so many conversations, there's so many public speakers, there's so much text out there that everything has become diluted. So my last question for you is, since we are living in a diluted type of society world of speech text, how can we begin to concentrate on something that's more meaningful for us? So maybe instead of listening to 100 speakers, we listen to just our top 3, right? Just kind of an example to kind of give you maybe some runway to kind of go off with. How can we start to concentrate what we put into our brain rather than dilute it with a bunch of little stuff?
Well, I think that we all concentrate in anyway, because we all have different interests. We all have different personalities. So people choose what they choose. People choose what they like or what they need, depending on the purpose of that action, of the choosing to watch something. That's why I think it's not that bad that we have this diluted society, or all these options and these choices. We have so much to choose from, and we're all such different personalities, all of us in the world, and we can just pick what works for us. And that's why when we decide to listen to a speech, the reason could be, I want to be inspired, or I want to learn from speakers, or hey, I have this topic right now, I need to listen on that topic. So you go to TED.com. I think everybody knows that. You go there and you put in the topic, the theme, and you will find so many different speeches. And of course, how people choose is they will choose the topic, but they will look at the number of views. So the most popular ones, they will be at the top, but not always. Sometimes there will be gems that are not so popular and they don't have so many views, and they can be just on YouTube because they are TEDx. They are not even TED, and TED didn't put them on their main website. So, but on YouTube, we can see all the TEDx speeches, and there are so many. And you probably interviewed TEDx speakers. I'm preparing my TEDx speech right now. And yeah, there are, I don't even want to say the number, but so many of them. And I think it's beautiful. And when we choose, we will always pick what is right for us at this moment. And depending on, again, on the situation and on who we are.
Perfect. So if you could, can you leave us with any final words? Or if you don't know any final words, you can always just tell people how they can find you.
Of course, I can leave you with final words. And my favorite quote of all time is Henry Ford's, "If you believe you can or you believe you cannot, you're right." So what does that say to us? Believe that you can. Because if you don't believe you can do it, then you will never be able to do it. Then of course you can't do it. But when we believe that we can speak, it's a skill, you can develop it. And just you have to understand what is that message inside that you want to share with the world. So go out into the world and share it. If you need to work on this skill, then work on it, develop it, because you can. And then go out and share and speak, because everyone has an opinion, which is beautiful. Again, everyone has a message, which is powerful. So all we've got to do is go and share it with the world and not hold back, but speak up. Because even though so many opinions, like you said, are shared already, and so many people have something to think and something to say that is maybe different from others. But at the same time, there are so many other people who are holding back and who are not sharing their opinion and maybe depriving someone from something really important, something inspiring. And of course, let's do it for the good of all, and with the loving heart. And that will help us accept other people's opinions too. Go out there, people, speak up and share your message, and always speak with power.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they can find me on my website, natashabazilevych.com, and get my free video course, public speaking video course there that I created during the pandemic, and follow me on all social media.
And I'll have all that information in the description box below, so everyone can find her very easily. They can go to the website, get the workshop or the program, the course, and so they can learn or start the process of becoming eloquent speakers. All right. Thank you so much, Natasha Bazilevych, for coming on Coaching Session. A huge pleasure.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure for me.
All right. I want to thank my guest again, Natasha Bazilevych, for coming on Coaching Session. She is a fireball. She is full of energy. She is exuberant. She is passionate about what she does. And you can tell it just from the beginning of our conversation. You can tell that she loves what she does. And I felt it during the whole conversation. And what I do is I try to bring people down to an appropriate talking level, but she was just spicy all the way through. And that's what I love about her. She's sugar, spice, and everything nice. And she has so much to give. So I encourage you to go check out her website and all her social medias, to follow her. And then, of course, if you need any public speaking help and you're looking for someone who has a wonderful energy like she does, she's going to be your gal. So as always, if you need anything from me, you can email me, or you can head over to the website, reverendconcepts.com, and then you can get coaching or just reach out to me in that manner. I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.